You may have been born between 1957 and 1977. If so, you might feel something hard to explain. It can feel like you are older inside than you should be. Like you came here with a job, but nobody gave you the instructions. You may look normal on the outside. You may have a family, a home, and a life that seems fine. But inside, you may carry a quiet weight. You may feel tired in your spirit, not just your body. You may feel like you are always holding something together. And you may not know why. If you feel that way, you are not broken. In the spiritual readings connected to Edgar Cayce, there is an idea that souls do not come to earth at random times. The soul chooses a time. The soul chooses a place. The soul chooses a kind of life. Not because the soul wants pain, but because the soul wants growth. Because the soul wants to help. Cayce spoke about groups of souls who travel together through many lifetimes. You could call them soul groups. You could also call them soul families. They come in waves. They return again and again, like a team. They take turns helping each other learn, heal, and remember. And Cayce also spoke about the earth moving through big cycles, not just seasons, but long spiritual seasons. Times when the world changes faster. Times when old ways break. Times when people wake up inside, even if they do not understand what is happening. In this view, the years around 1957 to 1977 were not just normal years. They were a doorway, a turning point, a kind of spiritual storm season on the planet. So many souls came during that time who could handle pressure, not because they were stronger in an easy way, but because they had trained for it in other lifetimes. They had already learned hard lessons. They had already carried heavy feelings before. They had already walked through loss, fear, or struggle, and still kept their hearts open. In this story, this generation was spiritually chosen, not chosen to be better than others, chosen to do a certain kind of work. The work is not always public. It is often hidden. It can look like this: being the steady one in your family, being the one who listens, being the one who stays calm when others fall apart, being the one who senses danger before it happens, being the one who feels other people's pain like it is your own. You might have felt this even as a child. Many people born in this time say they felt different early on. They felt the world was too loud, too harsh, too fast. They felt adults were not telling the truth. They felt there was something else behind life, something deeper. They may not have had words for it, but the feeling was there. And often, life did not let them stay soft for long. Many in this generation grew up during big changes, social changes, family changes, money stress, war fear, cultural fear. Even if your home was safe, the world felt shaky in the background, like the ground under everyone's feet was not fully steady. In Cayce-style thinking, when the earth goes through a shift, it creates pressure. Like when the weather changes and the air feels heavy, some people do not notice it, but sensitive souls do. Sensitive souls often become the pressure holders. They carry what others avoid. They feel what others push down. They notice what others ignore. This is why this generation can feel inner restlessness, not just boredom, not just midlife stuff. It is a deeper restless feeling, like your spirit is waiting for something, like you are supposed to remember something, like your life is meant to mean more than routines. You might have tried to fix this restlessness by working harder, doing more, being more responsible. But it does not fully go away, because it is not only a personal feeling. In this view, it is part of the assignment. Cayce often talked about karma, but not as punishment, more like a balancing, a learning, a chance to make things right, inside yourself and with others. So why would this generation carry heavier karmic pressure? One reason is that they came to clear old patterns. Patterns in families, patterns in society, patterns in how people handle pain, Some of you were born into families where love was present, but feelings were not safe to show, or where addiction, anger, silence, or shame lived in the walls, or where parents did their best, but still passed down their own wounds. And you could feel it, even if nobody talked about it. So you became the one who tried to stop it, the one who said, "This ends with me," the one who tried to heal the family line. Even if you never use those words, this can create deep exhaustion, because you are not only living your own life, you are also carrying the emotional weight of people who came before you. And sometimes, you are carrying the fear of what could happen to those who come after you. That is a lot for one human heart. But there is more. In this spiritual view, the planet itself is going through a kind of awakening, a shift in awareness, a change in what people can feel and know, a change that brings more truth to the surface. And when truth rises, it can hurt at first. Because truth shows what was hidden. It shows what was denied. It shows what people did not want to face. This is where your role becomes very important. Souls born in this time can act like stabilizers, like anchors, like bridge builders between old ways and new ways, between fear and faith, between the past and the future. You may not feel like a hero. You may feel like you are barely making it. But being a stabilizer does not always feel strong. Often, it feels like quietly choosing love when you could choose numbness. It feels like staying kind when you are tired. It feels like holding your own healing in your hands, even when nobody taught you how. If you have lived through grief, illness, or deep emotional loss, this role can feel even heavier, because grief changes the soul. Grief can crack you open. It can make you question everything. It can make everyday life feel strange, like you are walking in a world that does not match your inside anymore. And yet, grief can also open a doorway. In Cayce-style teaching, the soul does not die. It continues. It learns. It returns. It stays connected to love. So if you have lost someone and you feel them near sometimes, that may not be just your imagination. It may be your sensitivity, your soul's memory, your heart's deep knowing. And if you are exhausted from life, that does not mean you failed. It may mean you have been doing spiritual work without being supported. In the next part, we will go deeper into why awakening can feel like fatigue, why so many in this generation feel like they are late or behind, and how that may actually be a sign of how much you have been carrying. If you are part of the 1957 to 1977 generation, you may have noticed a strange pattern in your life. You may have had to grow up early, or you may have felt like you were always catching up, like life keeps moving, but you are still trying to understand what it all means. You may also feel tired in a way that rest does not fix. This is not just stress, not just aging, not just too much to do. In the spiritual view connected to Edgar Cayce, there's something called awakening. Awakening is when the soul starts to remember what is real. It is when you begin to feel that life is not only about money, status, and chores. It is when you start to feel that you are more than your role. But awakening is not always peaceful. At first, it can feel like sadness. It can feel like anger. It can feel like you do not belong. It can feel like you cannot pretend anymore. And many people in this generation have been awakening for a long time. Some have been awakening since childhood. Others began during a crisis, a divorce, a sickness, a death, a loss of work, or a moment when life suddenly felt fragile. That is why there is something we can call awakening fatigue. Awakening fatigue is when your spirit is changing, but your daily life still demands that you act normal. It is when you are breaking old patterns inside, but people around you still expect the old version of you. It is when you are trying to heal, but the world keeps pulling you back into noise. This can feel lonely. And loneliness is one of the biggest hidden wounds for spiritually sensitive people. You may have friends, you may have family, you may even have a partner, but still feel alone inside, because you cannot fully explain what you carry. In Cayce-style ideas, sensitive souls often take on more than their share. They do it without meaning to. They walk into a room and feel the mood. They talk to someone and feel what is underneath their words. They watch the news and feel it in their body. So when the world goes through intense times, this generation can feel it like a wave in the chest. Think about what has happened across your lifetime. Changes in family life, changes in work life, changes in culture, fear about the future, a sense that things are speeding up, a sense that people are becoming more divided, a sense that truth is harder to find. To a sensitive soul, all of this can feel like an energy storm. Cayce spoke about critical times, when humanity must choose which direction it will go, not in one day, but over years. In these times, people are tested, not only in what they believe, but in how they treat each other, in how they respond to fear, in whether they live from love or from control. Now, here is the key point. In this story, the 1957 to 1977 souls were sent in to hold the middle line. What is the middle line? It is not being neutral about right and wrong. It is being stable while the world shakes. It is staying human while others become harsh. It is keeping your heart open while still having boundaries. It is remembering that every person has a soul, even when they are acting from pain. This is very hard work, and it does not come with applause. It often comes with pressure. That is why so many of you feel like you must be responsible, like you must get it right, like you must hold everything together, like if you fall apart, something bad will happen. This is not just personality. It can be spiritual memory. In Cayce's view, the soul carries memories from other lifetimes, not always as clear pictures, but as feelings. Some souls remember what it is like when societies collapse. Some remember war. Some remember hunger. Some remember losing loved ones suddenly. So when the world feels unstable, an old alarm can turn on inside you. You may not even know what you are afraid of. You just feel on edge, restless, watchful, always scanning. This can also connect to your body. Many spiritually sensitive people hold stress in the nervous system. Their bodies stay in ready mode. That can lead to headaches, stomach trouble, tight shoulders, sleep problems, and deep tiredness. And when illness happens, it can feel unfair, like life is piling on. In this spiritual frame, even illness can carry a message. Not that you caused it, not that you deserve it, but that the body is speaking. The soul is asking for a change, a new way of living, a new pace, a new kind of truth. And here is a hidden truth many people need to hear. You were not meant to carry everyone alone. If you are part of this generation, you may have been trained to be strong, to keep going, to handle it, to push through. But spiritual strength is not only pushing. Spiritual strength is also receiving support, receiving love, receiving rest, receiving help, receiving quiet. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop and breathe and admit you are tired, because your tiredness is not weakness. It is a sign that you have been doing deep work. Now let's talk about generational trauma. Generational trauma is pain passed down. It can be passed down through words, silence, fear, or habits. A parent who grew up afraid may raise a child with that fear. A family that survived hardship may become emotionally closed. A home that never talked about feelings may create adults who feel guilty for feeling. Many in the 1957 to 1977 group were born to parents who carried heavy history. Some parents lived through war times, deep poverty, or strict social rules. Even if your parents did not talk about it, the energy was there. So you grew up in a world where people worked hard, but did not always heal, and your soul, being sensitive, could feel the missing pieces. So you began the healing work, but healing work can feel like breaking apart before you become whole. That is why so many of you have had seasons of deep sadness or deep change. You may have felt like you were losing your old self. But what was really happening is that your soul was removing old armor. In the next part, we will talk about why this generation often feels spiritually responsible for the future, what it means to stabilize humanity's transition, and how your pain can become purpose without turning you into a martyr. There's a reason you may feel responsible for the future. Even if you never chose that thought on purpose, you may worry about your children, your family, your community, and the world. You may feel a quiet sadness when you see people hurting each other. You may feel anger when you see lies and cruelty. You may feel helpless, like one person cannot do much, and yet you still care. That caring is not small. In Cayce-style spiritual teaching, caring is power. Love is not a soft thing. Love is a force that holds reality together. Now we come to the deeper idea. If the earth is in a transition, then it needs stabilizers. A stabilizer is not always a leader on a stage. Often, a stabilizer is a person who stays kind in private. A person who refuses to become cruel. A person who keeps their soul clean. A person who tells the truth gently. A person who chooses healing over revenge. In this view, the 1957 to 1977 generation carries a special role because they stand between worlds. They remember life before the big modern speed. Many of you remember slower days, less screens, more face-to-face life, more quiet, more waiting, but you also lived through the rise of fast technology, fast news, fast fear, and fast change. So you can see both sides. That is why you can be a bridge. A bridge does not belong to only one side. A bridge connects. This is one reason. You may have felt misunderstood in life because your soul does not fully fit into one group. You may feel too deep for casual talk, but too practical for fantasy. You may feel spiritual, but not religious. You may feel sensitive, but also strong. This mix can feel strange, but it may be exactly what you came with. Now let's talk about the inner restlessness again, but in a new way. What if your restlessness is not a problem to fix? What if it is a compass? Sometimes restlessness is your soul saying, do not fall asleep in your life. Sometimes it is your spirit saying, there is more for you. Sometimes it is your deeper self saying, you are here for a reason. But the reason is not always a big public mission. For many, the mission is to break a pattern. To stop a cycle of shame. To stop a cycle of silence. To stop a cycle of cruelty. To stop a cycle of fear. This work can look very normal. It can look like being the first person in your family to say, I need help. It can look like being the first person to go to therapy. It can look like being the first person to speak kindly to your own body. It can look like being the first person to apologize to your child. It can look like being the first person to leave an unhealthy relationship. It can look like being the first person to say, I will not pass this pain on. These are spiritual acts, and Cayce-style thinking says something important. What you heal in yourself helps others too. Not always in a clear way, but in a real way. Like a candle lighting another candle. So when you do your inner work, you are not only doing it for you, you are helping stabilize the whole field of human life. Now, if you are grieving, you may wonder how grief fits into purpose. Grief can feel like a hole in the heart that never fully closes. It can feel like time is divided into before and after. And people may try to rush you. They may say, be strong, or they are in a better place. And it may not help. Here is the gentle truth. Your grief is love. Grief is what love feels like when someone is not in your arms anymore. And in the spiritual view, Cayce is known. For love does not end at death. The soul continues. The bond continues. The connection continues. So when you talk to them in your mind, when you feel signs, when you dream of them, when you sense them near, you are not crazy. You may be sensing the soul link. And if you are ill or emotionally exhausted, your purpose is not to pretend you are fine. Your purpose may be to slow down enough to listen. Because sometimes the soul chooses a harder life to teach surrender, to teach trust, to teach the heart to release control. Not to punish you, but to deepen you. But you must hear this clearly. You are not required to suffer, to be spiritual, that you are not required to stay exhausted to be useful. A true spiritual path includes rest. It includes joy. It includes light. If you have been carrying heavy pressure, part of your mission may be to learn how to put it down. So how do you stabilize humanity's transition in a real way? You do it through small, steady choices. You choose truth over denial. You choose kindness over hardness. You choose patience over panic. You choose healing over repeating the same story. You choose to forgive when you are ready, not when you are forced. You choose to protect your peace. You choose to stay connected to what is sacred for you. This is not entertainment. This is a way of living. And if you are watching this, it may be because your soul already knows. You may feel tired. You may feel behind. You may feel like you missed your moment. But what if your moment is now? What if the years you spent surviving were not wasted? What if they were training? In this spiritual frame, you were not born weak. You were born with a sensitive heart, because that is how you sense truth. You were not born too much. You were born tuned in. And you were not born to fit in perfectly. You were born to help the world shift, simply by being awake inside. If this message feels like it is speaking directly to you, sit with that feeling for a moment. Breathe. Let your shoulders drop. Let your heart be seen. And if you want to, share in the comments one thing you have carried quietly for a long time. Or share one moment when you felt you were guided, protected, or spiritually awakened. Your story may help someone else feel less alone. If you found comfort here, please like this video and subscribe. Not to chase numbers, but to keep this space alive for people who need calm truth and deep reassurance. You are not alone. You were never meant to be alone, and you are not here by accident.